Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Girls Who Eat, Breathe, and Dream Motorsport. My name is Jamie. I'm your host, and my guest for today is James Coker. Welcome,
You
James.
did it.
Thank you for
Thank you for having me, Jamie. You know, and I talked about this before we jumped on this, but like we're finally here. You and I have been messaging and emailing each other back and forth for like a year trying to figure out a time to do this.
So it's finally here.
Yeah.
And it's also before F1 season started.
Yeah.
So
great timing. We're doing it like I believe 8.5 hours or 9.5 hours before quali for the Australian Grand Prix. So no better timing than this, you know what I mean?
I know. So I know who you are and what you do, but maybe my listeners don't. So who are you and what is your role in motorsport?
Oh, sure. Yeah. My name is James Coker. I am an actor and sometimes a comedian. I also work in social media for companies like social media page. I work for a bank and I am a copywriter and content creator for their social media pages for TikTok and Instagram and stuff. And while I'm an actor and comedian, 2 years ago, I accidentally became a Formula One content creator. Well, a motorsport content creator, but I started doing Formula One stuff, and it all happened because my wife and I watched Drive to Survive, got really invested in Formula One, and I made like a couple videos with her, and they went super viral. And I made them and not thinking much about them, and they went super viral. And then I was like, okay, like I'll make a couple more F1 videos just for fun, and those went super viral. And then before I knew it, people were following me and thinking of me as a motorsport content creator, which was like never my plan, never my intention.
It's also F1 race weekend. Already said that. And what are your predictions for this weekend's race?
What are my predictions for Australian Grand Prix? I think that Max, like last season, is going to start very strong. I'm predicting that Charles Leclerc is going to put it on pole. Max is going to finish P1. I have Lando Norris P2, Charles Leclerc P3, Lewis P4, Oscar P.
I haven't thought about it. I'm always like looking at the sessions and then deciding. Yeah, it doesn't help this weekend. I think McLaren and Ferrari showed really great pace, and also in preseason.
Yeah.
So I think I already talked with my team about it. I'm pretty sure like the constructors goes to the end, and it will be between McLaren and Ferrari again.
I think so. I think it's going to be a very close both constructors and drivers battle this year.
Yeah, I remember people were like, "Oh yes, it's going to be very exciting," and I saw a tweet I think yesterday, and they were like, "Yeah, maybe not so excited."
Yeah,
because McLaren looked very strong.
Yeah,
but I think everybody's in the mix this season.
Right, Jamie. I gotta ask you, and forgive me for not knowing this, but where in the world are you?
In the Netherlands.
You're in the Netherlands. I'm in Los Angeles. So is there, when you talk about this on this podcast, is there a Dutch bias given that you live in the Netherlands?
No, I absolutely do not like.
So Max Verstappen is not your favorite driver?
No, absolutely not. Which is always funny because, people around me most of the time are like Max fans. So, but no, actually I'm not. But also I think that's because when I started watching and it was still on Ziggo Sport, they had a massive Dutch bias, and I was so annoyed by that I was like, nope, I'm not. I don't like that.
Yeah. I'm also curious to ask you because I know Max Verstappen, while he's Dutch, he also is Belgian, and he was not born in the Netherlands. I believe he was born in Belgium. In the Dutch media, is there ever like questions about his identity as a Dutch driver because of that?
No.
No, they've embraced him, and he's Dutch 100%. Yeah. Okay,
for people, he's 100% Dutch, which is quite funny because I live in the area he has grown up in. Spa is like an hour-ish away from me, so I always say we all have the same mentality, it's from the same region. So I'm like, yeah, I get it. I always say sorry guys, but he's absolutely not Dutch. He's from Belgium. But that's because everybody's like, yeah, no, he's so Dutch. I'm like, yeah, he might be acting Dutch, but he's actually born in Belgium.
Right.
And people forget that. And I'm like, these are facts. It's not like I make this up. It's even on Wikipedia where he's born.
Yeah.
No. No Dutch bias.
Did you get have you gotten the opportunity to attend a race at Spa or at Zandvoort?
Spa, I went to the 24 Hours of Spa last season, which was
cool.
Very great.
Yeah.
I took my father to his first ever race, so
amazing.
Really nice.
Cool.
The only bad thing was it was raining and raining in the evening.
And it's super dangerous to race at Spa in the rain. Yeah.
And it was in the evening when it was pouring down, and at some point, and I think it's funny because it's an onboard from a car. It was also thunder, and you could see the thunder strikes behind it. It was oh god. And it was the same moment when Portland was from Formula E last season. I was watching Portland and sitting on the grandstand in Spa, which was quite funny.
Oh, that's fun. That's cool.
What does a race weekend looks like for you? Because I know you watch different series.
I think a race weekend for me for Formula One varies on where in the world the race is, what time, and the time of the race. If practice sessions are happening around in the middle of the day where I can put them on the TV and passively watch them while doing other stuff and work, I will. I unfortunately don't get the opportunity to watch FP1, FP2, and FP3 intently throughout the whole sessions for most of the races because I have a full-time job. I'm also making content, not just for F1, but other racing series and about other racing series because I'm not just an F1 fan. I like IndyCar. I like Formula E. I like World Endurance Championship. So often I'm consuming the practice sessions just via watching the 10-minute highlights that the F1 TV recaps, which I think is very helpful. I always try to watch quali live because I think it's super exciting. And if I tell myself, oh, I'm going to watch quali later, and then I accidentally open Instagram and I find out the result, I'm super upset. So I always try to watch quali. I always wake up, regardless of how early or late it is. I always try to watch the race live because I love the act of getting to watch it in real time with millions of other people around the world and comment about it online, both on Instagram and threads or whatnot. So for me, a race weekend is I typically catch up on free practice session highlights when I can, watch quali live, try to tune into the race early to catch the grid walk, either Martin Brundle's on the Sky or Ruth Buscombe. It used to be Will Buxton, but also Ruth Buscombe Divey does grid walks now, which I think are great. I typically watch the race on F1 TV because I think the broadcast is better. I like the experience of getting to watch it with a multi-viewer and customize my viewing experience as opposed to just watching it on the standard Sky Sports broadcast, which is what we see when we watch it on ESPN in the United States. And then after the race is over, maybe I'll make some dumb video in response to something that happened or actively work on my outline for a race review because I host the WTF1 podcast and then, I don't know, go about my day. But I unfortunately don't have a lot of time to watch all of the sessions, mainly because of my job and the fact that I have a kid and I just have a lot of other things that consume my time and my energy.
And when you're I know you have been to some Formula E races, how does it look like for you a weekend like that? Because I know how mine look when I'm trackside.
Mm-hmm.
I was accredited last season, which was very unexpected. I didn't thought that would happen, and then it happened. I was nice.
Yeah.
But
Are you asking what my experience is like attending a Formula E race?
Yes.
It was amazing. It's interesting because Formula E was my first race that I'd ever attended ever. So I'm very new to the world of motorsport. Like I said before, over 2 years ago, I never watched a race in my life out of any series. I'd never watched NASCAR. I'd never watched IndyCar. And so going to season 10, round 1 of Formula E, which was in Mexico City, the Mexico City E-Prix was the first race I'd ever attended. And I was so spoiled that that was my first experience ever because for season 10, I was a content creator for Formula E for the entire season. I made 50 pieces of content for their series and they gave me incredible access. So I got to attend the Mexico City Prix. I got to talk to drivers on media days on Wednesday and Thursday of that race weekend. I got to watch a practice session from the Mahindra, or I got to watch a practice session from the Penske garage. I got to watch quali from the Mahindra garage. I got to do the grid walk before the race. I got to watch the race from the Emotion Club, which is Formula E's version of the Paddock Club. So like I had this all access, like elevated experience that most people don't get. And it spoiled me. It's like, I don't know if I could ever experience a race any other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I was pretty lucky in Monaco that I was supposed to meet up with Jeff Dodd because we had him on the podcast and we were meeting up for a garage tour. But we met him already like in the autograph session, and then they were like, "Yeah, no, you already met up with him." I'm like, "Okay," and then they were like, "Oh yeah, but maybe you can't go on the grid." But I had a other podcast host back then, and she didn't have like the pass, and I had the media pass, so I could get a stick. I was like, I'm so sorry, but if I'm not going to do this, I don't know when I get the chance to actually set foot on the grid. So like, I need to do this, and it's insane. And in Monaco, I felt so small because it's so busy. The grid is, and also it's like in the streets of Monaco, and then everybody was walking around. I was like, oh my god.
I felt the same way when I've attended races like that. When I went to the Formula One Las Vegas Grand Prix, I felt very small because everywhere I went, I saw current drivers, former drivers, team principals, celebrities, and I just felt like such a tiny, like insignificant person being surrounded by these like really famous and important people. It was a humbling experience, but it was also like very cool just to sort of like be an observer and a fly on the wall.
Yeah, but you're actually very lucky. Mexico is always a great race for me, and like amazing fans. Like it's always good. So I think you have been lucky for your first race to be Mexico. Mine was Monaco in 23, so not a lot. So yeah, it was also very nice.
If you don't mind me asking, like, what is your origin story into being a motorsport fan?
My father always watched like F1, but I didn't watch like actively. I can remember like that Michael Schumacher was on the grid, like Felipe Massa, and that kind of stuff. Obviously also Jos back then, so this goes way back.
Yeah.
But I don't have like an active memory of that. And then Max obviously got on the grid, actively watching more, and I was like, yeah, it was every single time if he like did great, it was like on the news for like a week. I felt like, and I was like, yeah, I remember that what was happening, but I didn't actively like watch the races until like 21. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to really watch this, and since then I've been watching F1, and this last 3 years Formula E, and then last year also WEC, which I think is always very amazing to watch, and strategy, and I really like constructors, always really nice. So yeah, so like as like a kid, I remember things vaguely, also because there's always like a fun fact about me. My mom's maiden name is Verstappen, but we're not family. Yes, but we're not family. Which is extremely funny, because I remember when Max won his first race, the radio call, because his sister lives like in Maastricht, which is like 30 minutes from where we were living. And obviously they went to like the phone book and saw like my mother's maiden name, and they were like calling like, "Can you talk about Max? Are you family?" We were like, "No," and we were like, "Yes."
Is Verstappen a common Dutch name, like in America, the name Johnson or Smith?
No, that's not that I know of, but it's funny because, I'm pretty sure you're not family.
You might be related. You don't know. You guys should do a 23andMe DNA test and see if you're related at all.
But I think it's always funny to say, but that's those are like the little things I remember when I didn't like actively watch.
Yeah.
What is your favorite series to watch?
So I think my favorite series to watch is IndyCar, and I love Formula One, and Formula One was like my entry into a motorsport. And there are a lot of things that I love about Formula One. I think historically there isn't a ton of parity. Like typically you have like one or two teams, one or two drivers dominating, and then the rest of the teams and drivers are struggling to catch up. I do feel like last season was an outlier. Last season was an incredible season for Formula One. You had like 7 different race winners from 4 different constructors. You had a very close fight for the constructor standings. You had a very close-ish race for the drivers' championship. But I feel like typically a Formula One season is more like what you saw in 2023 and also what you saw during Mercedes AMG Petronas' dominance during the turbo hybrid era, where they won 8 straight constructors titles. What I like about IndyCar is like there's way more parity, and you have more distribution among race wins over the course of the season. And you also have, for instance, in Formula One, last season, for instance, Stake/Kick/Sauber, they were always going to run at the back, and they were never going to really compete for podiums. That just never was going to happen. And you had Alpine getting a double podium at Brazil. But that's because it was in the wet, and there were certain conditions that allowed them to have that finish. But last year you were never going to see Kick or Stake or Sauber compete for a spot at the front. You just weren't. In IndyCar, you'll have a driver qualify at the back of the grid and finish last place, and then the next race they'll put it on pole. And I love that there is parity in IndyCar and an opportunity, depending on the track, depending on whether they're on an oval, a street circuit, or a permanent track. Like different cars and different drivers have different advantages, and it just feels a little bit more competitive. I do know it's more of a spec series. It's not a true spec series, but I believe they have the same chassis. Everyone has the same chassis. You have the option between a Honda or a Chevy power unit, and then there are other modifications that can be done, and everyone has the same tires, but there's like modifications that can be done to the car to give it a competitive advantage over others. And I just really enjoy how exciting IndyCar is. That's probably my favorite series to watch.
Yeah, I'm just starting to get into IndyCar because there's always like a time difference, which I always need to figure out when it is. So I'm like, okay, I'd watched the first race of this season. I don't know how many I will see this season, but I will try. I have seen the Indy 500 like 2 times. So
I feel like it's not that hard for you because a lot of these races start like at noon Eastern time, and that's like early evening for you. Like I feel like it's way harder for me where I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to watch the Baku race.
Yeah, no, that's true, but it's more like that I have to figure out where Seiko is like putting it on. That's always the thing. Like I'm need to figure out how late it starts and when Seiko is and which one they put it on. Like it's always like ooh. But I'm trying. I'm going to try my best this season because I also have the accreditation this season. So I was like, the funniest thing about it is like I got an email with press conferences. But they obviously are like local time, and I had to figure out the time difference. And I was like,
sure.
For one session, I was like 10 minutes late because I was like, it is happening now because I put it wrong in my agenda, which was not that smart, but I still made it. You told me you had you met the drivers. Do you have any driver interactions that you loved, for example, in Formula E?
Yeah, absolutely. In Formula E, I was very intimidated to meet Jean-Eric Vergne because I had watched the Formula E Unplugged series, and he kind of comes off as kind of a curmudgeon. He kind of comes off as like a sort of ornery guy who's like always in a bad mood and doesn't want to be bothered and whatnot. But he was so lovely. And I was so surprised how much I enjoyed talking to him. And I think one of the reasons why he was nicer and warmer to me is I wasn't asking him typical questions because these drivers get asked the same 3 questions by dozens of journalists, and they hate having to feel like a toy that has a pull string in the back that's just saying the same thing over and over and over again. And I really enjoyed getting to talk with him. I also loved Oliver Rowland, who drives for Nissan. He was just a very warm and inviting guy. And I really enjoyed getting to interview him. And as well as like, I didn't get to talk to him when I was in Mexico City, but later in the season when I went to the Hankook Tires Portland Prix, which was rounds 13 and 14 of season 10, I got an opportunity to interview both Pascal Wehrlein and Antonio Felix da Costa of Tag Heuer Porsche Formula E team. And while Pascal Wehrlein was a very nice guy, he's very sort of like black and white and by the book, and like he didn't really understand like my style of like comedy that I was like sort of leaning into when I was asking them certain questions and doing bits with them. And he was very nice and very patient with me. But Antonio Felix da Costa was like on board for anything that I had to say or anything that I wanted to do. And he like wanted to add to the joke and was like very like playful and fun. And was just like, I had so much fun getting to like talk with and interview Antonio Felix da Costa. Like I would love the opportunity to get to like interview him again. I also remember him finish. He won the race on the second day, which was like round 14, and was like elated. And like, I remember like walking past him before he walked into a press conference, and he went out of his way to come up to me and like gave me a high five, was like, yo bro, like that's Formula E, and like was super excited. And like, a lot of the drivers, with the exception of like me interviewing them, they don't want to talk to me because like they just like, and I understand they want to be guarded. They just like, they have a lot of people trying to get their time and energy, but like he went out of his way to come up and talk to me after he had just won a race. And like that, I thought that was really cool. And yeah, so all of them for the most part were really nice guys. Maximilian Gunther, also very patient, very kind, but Antonio Felix da Costa and Jean-Eric Vergne really stick out to me.
Yeah, I always, when I was in Berlin and I was the media event, I remember that someone was talking to Di Grassi.
Yeah.
And Di Grassi loves talking.
Oh, he really does.
He does, and he just keeps talking. It was so funny that everybody was gone and he was still talking to that guy, and like, yeah, he's yapping.
Lucas Di Grassi, I got a great interview with Lucas Di Grassi. I was doing a bit with all the drivers where I was asking them like a theoretical question where like, if you were going to drive against a 9-year-old, would you beat them and why, and by how much? And if you were going wheel to wheel with a 9-year-old, would you push them off the track or give them space? And drivers like Jake Dennis were like, I'm pushing him off. That kid's going in the wall, which was like so funny. And some drivers would say, I'm pushing them off. Some drivers would say, oh, I'll be nice, I'll give him space. And Lucas Di Grassi told me a story about when he went he was a kid. He was like 9 or 10 years old, and he went karting with his dad, and he pushed his dad off the track and caused his dad to crash or like go into the wall or something in a karting race. And his dad got so mad that he left him at the track and made him take the bus home.
This remember me about the story that Max was like put at a gas station.
Similar to the gas station thing, yeah.
Sometimes I think like drivers have funny stories. I also think they don't tell every story, but those stories are unlikely.
Yeah, for sure.
Imagine being a kid and just left somewhere in Italy at a gas station, and then you need to find your way home. Like if it's like here, where you know where you are. Like if my parents like would drop me somewhere like 30 minutes from here, I'm like, okay, I will find my way. But
yeah, in
a different country where you normally are not there, like you don't know your ways around.
Sure. Yeah.
I love the sketches. How does that work? What is the thought process before coming up with those?
Oh, thank you. You know, I think it's one of those things where I have been doing sketch comedy and improv for 15 plus years. I started in New York City at Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, which is a comedy theater there. A lot of famous comedians and actors have come out of UCB. I also performed at a theater called The Pit and The Magnet. And so I've been writing and performing sketch comedy for over a decade. And so applying that skill set to something as niche as Formula One and then motorsport in general was like a very easy and natural way for me to like lean into and express like my fandom for these different racing series. And so for me, the process is just like sort of watching a race, watching different moments that happen in press conferences or either in the race on the radio or interactions between the drivers and the media, and just trying to find like a funny angle into like why I thought that moment was so interesting and fun, and then sort of putting my spin on it. So it could be like a sketch, it could be a song parody, it could be kind of like turning a moment into like a meme. It could be like the memification of it. And yeah, that's kind of where the thought process comes from. I think for the most part, I try not to punch down. Like I never want to like make fun of a driver for having a bad performance or crashing out or having something unfortunate happen to them. I try to not make fun of anybody's misfortune. And so I try to be like good natured in most of the comedy that I do.
I always think your songs are so funny.
Oh, thank you.
I would have never ever. I don't remember which one it was. Almost like this is really good.
Thanks.
Do you have any goals regarding your future in motorsport?
Not really, no. To be honest with you, like, I know a lot of people in the motorsport space, the motorsport content creator space have aspirations to be presenters for like, say, Sky Sports or for F1 TV or WEC or Formula E. A lot of people want to be presenters. A lot of people want to be journalists with a media outlet that covers motorsport. That's not really something that I realistically see in my life. I'm married with a kid. I don't really like to travel that much, and a career like that would require me to be away from home, 24 plus weeks out of the year, which is not really like a life and a lifestyle that I want for myself. I think for right now, this continues to be like a hobby for me. It's like Kimi Räikkönen instead of DTS. This is pretty much a hobby for me. I do it for fun. I do it because like I'm already watching these races. I'm already like making these jokes to my friends and my wife. I might as well just like take these jokes and share them with the world too. And if people like them, that's great. If they don't like them, that's fine. But I think very much this is just something I do on the side on top of like my day job and on top of me being an actor and on top of like me being a husband and a father.
Are there still certain races you want to go to?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm going to the 24 Hour of Le Mans this year, which I'm so excited about.
I'm very jealous.
I was invited by this travel company called Motorsport Travel Destinations. They're like a motorsport travel company that like offers like travel packages. And so I've been making content about their travel packages in exchange for, they're flying me out there. They're putting me up in their accommodations. They're giving me race tickets, food and drink and all that stuff. And so I'm like very excited for that. So that's a big bucket list thing for me. Like, I don't have a ton of desire to go to the Monaco Grand Prix because like, I just know how expensive it is. And I know like, regardless of how much money I spend, I'll still feel like a small, insignificant person there. But I like the idea of getting to attend the Monaco Grand Prix because I would love to go to every Triple Crown race. Like I would love to go to 24 Hour of Le Mans, Indy 500 and Monaco Grand Prix. I definitely want to go to the 24 Hour of Le Mans and Indy 500 more than I want to go to Monaco. But in regards to F1 races, I really want to go to COTA. I still haven't been. I would love to go to Silverstone just because of the history. Would love to go to Monza. I love Japan, so I'd love to go to Suzuka. I would love to go to Montreal. Like, that's a bucket list thing for me. I've only been to one F1 race, and that was the Las Vegas Grand Prix this year, and it was so much fun. Or last season. That was so much fun. I hope I get to do that again. But I think if you have to tell me three races that you absolutely want to go to, it's 24 Hour of Le Mans, Indy 500, and F1 race, Monza, I guess.
It's always nice with if an Italian.
Yeah. I have heard, though, that the facilities at Monza aren't very nice.
Yeah.
So it's like the bathrooms are kind of gross, like the food options aren't great, but it's just like such an iconic track. And like, I would love to like feel like the tribal energy of the Tifosi just like going nuts for Ferrari. Like that would be so much fun.
I have been to Austria, which was also very nice.
Yeah.
The only thing I will tell those flares, they don't smell great. They smell like rotten eggs, and I was like in the middle of those. I was like, guys, I just stop it, please. I just need to watch.
When you went to the race in Austria, were there more Red Bull fans than you would probably see at other races?
I don't know. I think like Barcelona, Zandvoort, Spa, and like Austria are like kind of the same. It's pretty cheap and easy to go to for like Dutch fans. So it's pretty orange there.
Yeah. So it's more so that the Orange Army turns out to support Max than Austrian fans show up to support
Yeah, I think so.
Red Bull. Okay, got it.
because I remember when I went, I was like on the camping, and like from like the people around us, everybody was Dutch, and the people I went with were like German, they're both German, and I went with Josh, which obviously is American. So I was the only one who spoke Dutch, and at some point when they were like trying to speak with them, and I heard they were like Dutch, and I was like, oh no, I'm pretty sure they will speak to me the whole weekend if there's something. And that happened. But we had so much fun. They were like great neighbors.
Yeah.
So it was great. When I realized that they were like Dutch, and actually I heard them speak Dutch, I was like, I tried to ignore them so that I didn't have to speak with them about like the caravan. But they needed someone, so like, oh yeah, I speak Dutch. It was much fun. I can recommend everybody to go to Austria.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be fun.
What is the best advice you have ever gotten?
Ever gotten in ever?
Yeah, in general.
Oh God. I don't know if I can pull that answer out of nowhere right now. I would have to think about that. But if to be more specific, what is the best advice I've ever gotten as a content creator? I can answer that.
Yes.
And that is to make the content that you enjoy making, and make the content that you want to make, the kind of videos and content that you want to see on the internet. And don't think about making content that you just think is going to go viral. Like, make things that you enjoy making, and make things that you want to see, because I think it's very important to be process oriented and not results oriented. I think too many creators in this space, and just on the internet in general, are so focused on metrics, are so focused on like the success of a video, like how many likes does it have, how many views does it have, how many shares does it have, as opposed to being focused on and in love with the process of making it. Because ultimately, you might tell yourself, I will be happy if I get a video that makes 1 million views, and you'll make a video that gets 1 million views and you still won't be happy. But if you are constantly happy with the process in which you ideate, write, shoot, perform, and edit content, and you just love the act of making it, you will always feel fulfilled and be happy.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I sometimes see people asking in their stories, yeah, what kind of content do you want to see? In my head, I'm like, yeah, just content you like to make, because at the end of the day, you're the one making it. If you
people say that, when creators ask that, like, what kind of content do you want to see? I'm like, you are being so lazy right now.
Yes.
Like, come up with your own ideas.
Yeah. No, that's true. I have asked what people wanted to see when we went to Monaco. Is there something specific you want to see?
Yeah.
But I have my things I would want to make anyways. But I always think like, make things you like to make, because at the end of the day, if you don't like making certain things, you're not going to be consistent with it. And then
and it's not gonna be authentic, and people are going to be able to sniff that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So someone you look up to, and so who is that person?
Someone I look up to, like, in general or in this motorsport space?
Both.
So someone I look up to actually is my current co-host of the WTF1 podcast, and her name is Ash Vandelay. I don't know if you know her.
Yeah, I've spoken with her last year.
Yeah, so I have so much respect for Ash. She is so passionate about motorsport. She is so knowledgeable. She is also very, very funny. And like her like motivation and passion for motorsport and making content is because she wants more people to be into it. Like she genuinely wants to grow the space and wants to grow the sport, not just for F1, but like NASCAR and for GT World Challenge and for IMSA and for WEC. Like, she is just like this encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to not just the cultural aspects of sports, but the technical aspects of motorsport and the subtle nuances of it. And and I've told her this before, and I'm like, I don't want you to be offended by this, but I don't understand how you don't have a bigger following, because like everything you make is so good. And so like, while we are co-hosts and we are like in some way peers, I really look up to her, and I have like so much respect and admiration for her.
Yeah, I agree. When we spoke with her last year, I was like, and I met up actually with her in Spa, because I knew she was there. I was like, yeah, I'm Spa. And she was like, oh, great. So I have made, brought some stroopwafels. Do you want to? are you going to collect them? She was very happy, very happy with them.
Yeah, Spa is her favorite track.
I mean, I would agree because it's a great track. I'm biased. I mean, it's an hour away from me, so if I wanted to, I could go. There's actually also a karting track somewhere in the middle of Spa.
Oh, that's cool.
I haven't been there yet, but I realized that after someone put something on their stories, like the location, and I clicked on it, and then I was like, there's karting there. Huh? I didn't know that.
That's so cool.
Which is quite funny.
So you could add that to your resume that you raced, that you've driven at Spa once you do that.
Yeah, actually, I could have. So, I have.
Have you attended the Belgian Grand Prix before?
No, I only went to the 24 Hours of Spa, which was really nice. I think I paid it was like some 80 euros for actually the whole weekend with.
Is it because it's cost prohibitive? Is it because it's so expensive? Like, how expensive? How expensive is it to attend the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa?
I don't remember the prices, but Austria is like way cheaper. But
okay, got it.
Like, Spa is cheaper than Zandvoort. That's what I remember, but it's very expensive.
Got it.
Like 24 Hours of Spa was really nice because it was 80 euros and it was for the everything and also the better access. So it was really nice.
That's cool.
We always do followers questions, and I have 9 questions for you from our followers. First one is, what came first, the love for entertaining people or motorsport?
It's the love for entertaining people. I mean, I've been doing that since I was in college. I love to act. I love to perform. I love to write. But what it really comes down to is I love to make people laugh. And I've been doing comedy for a long time. And I've had pieces of content go viral and perform really well. But for some reason, I was never really able to cultivate a large following. And it wasn't until I accidentally found this niche of making comedy content in the motorsport space that I started building a following. But when it really comes down to it, it's I love to make people laugh, and it makes me really happy to make people happy that way. So it's definitely entertaining first.
Why do you think it's important to bring humor and personality in such a data-driven sport as Formula One, and what made him start?
Why do I think it's important to bring personality to us, motorsport and humor? I think one of the reasons is that often in this world of motorsport, it's very buttoned up because it is run by people with incredible power, incredible wealth, people who come from incredible privilege, who often have this air of self-importance to them that makes the world and the sport feel very stuffy and inaccessible to everyday people like you and me. And I think it's important to bring an air of levity and humor to it to make it feel more relatable and accessible to fans. And I think we've seen that with the success of Drive to Survive. We've seen that with the expanse of access that teams have given us to drivers and their personalities on social media. When we are able to see these people more as regular people and not these athletes that are put up on a pedestal that are sort of idol worship, when we are able to see them just as regular people who have their strengths and their weaknesses and their flaws, we're able to relate with them on a personal level a little bit more and see them as people. And so I think, covering motorsport through the lens of humor helps achieve that as well.
Yeah, I say people forget sometimes they're real people and not just characters.
Yeah,
they're playing a part. So I absolutely agree. Did you ever experience pushback from your more different style from traditional motorsport?
I mean, I wouldn't say what I do is journalism per se. And I make that very clear on threads, on Instagram, in my videos, in my comments. I'm listen, I'm not a journalist. And I'm not trying to be a journalist. I will never, ever try to portray myself as an expert. I'm a fan. That's all I am. And so I get facts wrong all the time. I misremember things all the time. There are times where I will say a statement that is not true because I've only been a fan for 2 years. And while I've done my best to educate myself on the history of Formula One and other motorsport series, there are times where I'll say something that is wrong because I don't have the encyclopedic knowledge that someone like Ash Vandelay has. And so I When I first started making content, there was a lot of pushback from like gatekeepy old school fans who don't like it, that they don't like the memification of Formula One and motorsport. They just want people to follow the races and cite statistics and talk about the sport itself, but they don't want to talk about the cultural aspects of it. And to that, first of all, I feel like it's very short-sighted. I feel like it is inherently detrimental to a sport to not want new people to become fans of it. But I think it's important to highlight the cultural aspects of the sport and the pop cultural moments of the sport in addition to the sport itself, because that gets more people involved. It's great marketing for the series. It's great marketing for the teams and the drivers. And what we've seen with successful sports all over the world, you look at the NBA, you look at the NFL, you look at Major League Baseball, you look at Premier League Soccer, when you're able to find the intersection of like sports, art, and culture, it makes that sport more culturally relevant and makes more people want to be involved. So there was a lot of pushback that I got, especially at the beginning. I don't get it as much now because I've gotten the opportunity to get more followers, and I've had pieces of content get more successful, and that's drowned out a lot of the people who criticized me when I first started doing this stuff. But also, like, my stuff has evolved. Like, I feel like when I first started making this stuff, maybe some of it was cringy. It still is cringy, but like it was more cringy. Maybe it was a little more clickbaity. But I feel like I've found my voice a little bit more over the last 2 years, and I'm continuing to find my voice and evolve. And my content now, a lot of it is different from the stuff that I first made.
What is one motorsport narrative you think the media gets completely wrong?
One motorsport narrative that it gets completely wrong. I think one motorsport narrative that I think people get completely wrong is the fact that everybody involved in motorsport is rich and privileged. Yes, that is very often the case, especially drivers. For the most part, a lot of these drivers, in order to get the experience and develop the skills to be proficient and competitive in motorsport, you need a lot of money to be able to support a karting career and make your way through the ranks. But there are exceptions to that rule. Like Lewis Hamilton is a great exception to that rule. Checo Perez is a great exception to that rule. Esteban Ocon is a great exception to that rule. Alex Albon. And so I think there is a misconception that everybody involved in motorsport comes from a ton of money, and that's simply not true. And then you look at people who aren't drivers who work for teams, people who work in comms, people who work on the social team, people who work in the pit crew, the race engineers. A lot of those people come from like humble beginnings and are just everyday people like you and me. And ultimately, like, you know, these are all regular people like who just happen to be very passionate about motorsport.
Yeah, I agree. I think people sometimes forget. Always selling, like, obviously, Charles is from Monaco, but people forget the native people from Monaco aren't necessarily like rich. The people who are going to live there, like moving there, they absolutely are like wealthy. But like if you're born there, you don't have to be necessarily like wealthy. Or that I think the narrative is always like Nat is the only one who's like coming from rich parents. I'm like, yeah, no. There's a certain British driver who is also from a very wealthy background. Which is totally fine. That's how it is nowadays, and people just forget that's happening.
Yeah.
The new people who are coming in will be not from the same background as, for example, Lewis, because the whole aspect of motorsport just changed more, and it's more about money. And as people are saying, yeah, it's all about the money. Yes, because it is a business and it needs to survive, which is, I think, is always like pretty funny to see that people are like complaining. I'm like, how do you think we are watching this?
Yeah. I mean, there is a misconception about Charles Leclerc as well. Like, I think a lot of people just assume his family was super rich. And if I'm remembering this correctly, I think his extended family might have some sort of wealth and money, but I think his direct family, his nuclear family, his parents weren't super wealthy. And I think the only reason he was able to stay in motorsport is his godfather, Jules Bianchi, convinced the Ferrari Driver Academy to take a chance on him and support his career from a certain point.
Yes, I think that, they knew like to be on East, so it was really, he started karting there and he still lost like certain things if they ask him to come. But, I always think like, yes, people in Monaco are wealthy, but the people who move there are like wealthy. Like people who
Yeah.
live there, who are born there, and are not necessarily like wealthy because they just have been lucky to be born there, which is always an idea. And also, even if he was, that's how the sport survives. You're watching the race. What is your go-to snack?
My go-to snack for watching a race. I don't eat a ton during a race. I typically just drink coffee because it's early in the morning and I don't eat breakfast. But if it's later in the day, it's yogurt with frozen blueberries and some oats and coconut flakes and hemp seeds and honey.
Sounds great.
It's like my protein bowl that I eat every day. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's also with like the time difference. A lot of races for me are like just midday or like in the evening. To be fair, I don't really have a go-to snack for a race because I'm always very into the racing. I'm like, I cannot like eat something. So
yeah.
If you had to write a major F1 motorsport moment in history as a comedy sketch, which one would it be and why?
That's a great question. I think I immediately think about the moment that, like, I don't know if you can expand on this, you can make it funnier, but the moment where Kimi Räikkönen crashed out in the Monaco Grand Prix and instead of going back to his garage, walked onto his yacht and chilled on his yacht for the rest of the race. That's like one of the funniest moments I've ever seen and read about in the history of Formula One. I don't know like what I could do to make that any funnier because that's just so funny as is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I get him. Like, why if you go back to your yard or to your like garage, I know which one I would choose. Do you think drivers and actors have something in common?
Drivers and actors? Do I think they have something in common?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they have something in common in the sense that they always have to be on. And if you look at the act of acting and the act of driving, it's taking like a skill set and taking training that you've done your entire life and being so prepared that you could do this in your sleep. Like to be able to as an actor, to be able to be so over prepared and have your lines down so much that you can go on autopilot and just be present in the moment and not worry about what's my next line, what's my blocking here, is the same as a driver who memorizes a circuit, every single turn, every single nuance of a track, and knows it so well that they can turn off that part of their brain where they're thinking like, what's the next move, and they're almost subconsciously driving the circuit. I think it's similar in that way.
Yeah, I always, when I see the videos of them just like blindly kind of doing a track just on sound, I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
Like if you only on sound, not even seeing like the video in front of them, I think that's impressive.
It's impressive seeing the drivers close their eyes and visualize driving the track. It's also very interesting to ask them to drive a circuit, and most of them can just do it on a piece of paper. Like, I think it's like that level of preparation in any performance, whether you're an athlete or a performer, is necessary to be able to do a really, really good job.
That was the last question from my followers. Do you have any questions for me?
How frustrated are you that it took a year for us to finally land down a time to get to talk?
I mean, if I be honest, as always, if I want someone, I will just keep going until I actually get an answer.
Yeah.
So, and I know like people have their own lives and are busy and aren't always necessarily seeing emails and that kind of stuff. So, maybe a little. But
we did it though. We're here.
Yes, like finally. No, I'm not that frustrated.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your patience with me. I really appreciate that. Thanks for not giving up on me, Jamie.
I mean, I wouldn't do that to anybody. If I really, really want someone, I'm like, okay, I will just keep asking until I get like a no or something.
Amazing.
So we are at the end of the podcast. I want to thank you for being here. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Thanks for having me.
And for my listeners, if you don't follow us already on the socials, in the description of today's episode, you'll find the link to our socials and also the WhatsApp groups for the European Formula E races. I want to thank you for listening, and I will see you next time with another amazing guest.
Bye.
Bye.